My son Julian Thorne called, his voice laced with forced composure, to inform me I was no longer welcome at his vineyard wedding. His fiancée, Serena Maxwell, apparently felt my vibe wouldn't align with their meticulously curated celebration. After I numbly replaced the receiver, I poured a generous measure of single malt, retrieved my laptop, and began mapping out what would become the most sensationally documented event of the year. If you're reading this now, please hit that subscribe button and let me know your vantage point. Allow me to rewind and explain how I, Eleanor Vance, a 64-year-old retired history professor, morphed into the internet's most discussed matriarch within a mere 72 hours. It all began one crisp Wednesday morning when my phone chimed. "Mom, we need to discuss something," Julian stated, that familiar, slightly strained tone, perfected since his boyhood escapades, signaling imminent disappointment. "What troubles you, my dear?" I inquired, feigning casual interest. "Serena and I have been going over the final wedding details," he continued, "and well, she's intensely focused on every element being absolutely flawless. You know how brides can be, right?" I felt the familiar chill of premonition, but I allowed him to construct his own narrative. "And the reality is, she's concerned your presence might, well, interfere with the overall ambiance. She thinks it could make things rather jarring. For 31 years I had nurtured this boy, solitary after his father chose a different path. I taught extra classes, curated additional exhibits, and published obscure articles to fund his elite university education, his first vintage car, and the deposit on his metropolitan apartment. I had bitten my tongue for 2 years as Serena subtly belittled my cherished antique furniture, my quaint garden parties, and my dated philosophical outlook. "I see," I responded, my voice remarkably steady, though my grip on the phone receiver was white-knuckled. "And you concur with this assessment, Julian?" "Mom, please," he pleaded, his voice cracking slightly. "Don't complicate this further. It's just one day. We'll arrange a lovely supper for us when we're back from the Amalfi Coast." "Of course," I affirmed. "I understand perfectly." The palpable relief in his voice was almost offensive. "Truly? Thank you, Mom. I knew you'd approach this with reason." After hanging up, I stared at the elegant, embossed invitation propped on my kitchen counter. It proclaimed in ornate calligraphy that Serena Maxwell and Julian Thorne would exchange vows at the exclusive Viridian Heights Vineyard the following Saturday. The very invitation I'd personally hand-stamped, as Serena claimed her carpal tunnel flared up during the engagement party preparations. I calmly took the invitation, tore it precisely into quarters, and dropped it into the recycling bin. Then I opened my laptop and plunged into a digital investigation. You see, my dear future daughter-in-law was unaware of a crucial fact about me. I might be 64, but my digital footprint predates hers by a decade. 30 years as a history professor had honed my ability to dissect information, identify patterns, and strategize against formidable adversaries, be they academic rivals or overly entitled students. Serena Maxwell was about to discover that this old-fashioned scholar had a repertoire of tactics she'd never encountered. But first, a critical call was in order. I dialed my sister, Beatrice, B, at 7:45 a.m. the next morning. B has always been the adventurous one in our family, the one who viewed life's challenges as thrilling puzzles. "Eleanor, darling, what's amiss? You only call at this hour if someone's departed." "Not departed, B, merely discarded," I replied, a wryness in my tone. "Julian has revoked my invitation to his wedding." "He what? That insufferable charlatan? After every single thing you've sacrificed for him?" I recounted the entire saga, while B punctuated my narrative with appropriately indignant exclamations. B, 2 years my junior, exudes the energy of someone 2 decades younger, making her an ideal accomplice for my burgeoning scheme. "So what's the blueprint?" she inquired once I concluded, "because I know you've meticulously crafted one. I recognize that calculating lilt in your voice, the same one you deployed when Professor Davies tried to plagiarize your dissertation. I require your expertise for some preliminary reconnaissance. Serena Maxwell, 30 years old, heads the Lifestyle and Trends division at Zenith Marketing downtown. I need a comprehensive overview of her daily movements, her digital habits, her social circle. Eleanor Elizabeth Vance, what precisely are you orchestrating?" "Nothing illicit, B. Simply a meticulous gathering of intelligence. There was a thoughtful pause. This extends beyond the wedding, doesn't it? She was astute. For 2 years, I had observed Serena systematically erode Julian's connections to his family and genuine friends. She had subtly convinced him that my traditional values were stifling and his college mates were unsophisticated. Every festive occasion became a delicate negotiation, with Serena's comfort dictating terms. Every family gathering included veiled criticisms of my ancestral home, my culinary preferences, my life choices. I had remained silent, believing that sacrificing my voice would prevent me from losing my son entirely. It appears I was mistaken. He had already slipped away. B. How would you respond if I presented you with certain footage that might pique the interest of Julian's wedding guests? I posed the question, watching her eyes glint. I'd say, "Do tell, Eleanor, with every delicious detail." It was a blustery Saturday morning, and I was ensconced with a discreet almond croissant and a strong espresso at the Quill and Cup, a charming little establishment with wrought iron patio seating downtown. I was merely observing the general ebb and flow of metropolitan life when I spotted Serena meeting someone, a rather strapping gentleman, undeniably dark-haired and unequivocally not Julian. "Oh, Eleanor, you didn't, did you?" Bee's voice was a whisper of excited horror. I hadn't meticulously plotted that specific encounter, but when I observed her practically scaling this stranger's lap in broad daylight, a mere 2 days before her purported grand matrimonial debut, well, I felt an academic obligation to document it. The truth was, I had been shadowing Serena for 3 full days. A particular smirk, a subtle air of unshakable triumph she'd adopted when she answered Julian's phone the evening he delivered my disinvitation, had ignited a peculiar, investigative spark within me. Serena was too supremely confident, too convinced of her ultimate victory. Decades as a historian had taught me that those guarding secrets often betray themselves most openly when they presume absolute privacy. "You captured it on video, then?" B pressed, barely suppressing a cackle. Indeed, 47 minutes of Serena Maxwell exhibiting a profound level of intimacy with a gentleman who is decidedly not my son. B's ensuing laugh was a rich conspiratorial sound, instantly transporting me back to our adolescent escapades, those spirited rebellions that shaped our unbreakable bond. "What is your next directive, General Vance?" she inquired, her tone playful but utterly serious. "Meet me at the Grand Promenade tomorrow. We are embarking on a quest for the most exquisitely ironic wedding gift." By Thursday morning, B and I were navigating the gleaming corridors of Riverside Galleria, adopting the air of 2 perfectly innocuous socialites planning a charity luncheon, rather than orchestrating what might be most accurately termed a theatrical unraveling. "So, what's our official narrative?" B asked, as we strolled past a colossal fountain where a gaggle of Gen Zers perfected their selfie angles. "We are not conducting surveillance. We are meticulously curating bespoke wedding presents." "Ah, personalized tokens of our profound affection," B murmured, catching on instantly. Earlier that morning, we had swept past Meridian Marketing, confirming Serena's rigid daily routine. She departed for her midday repast at precisely 12:15 p.m. and returned at 1:30 p.m., without fail. This intelligence B had extracted with practiced ease from the amiable receptionist under the guise of arranging a floral surprise for Serena. The clandestine companion from the cafe I had ascertained was a man named Jasper Thorne, a name I'd gleaned by doing what any rational, albeit slightly aggrieved individual would do. I trailed them. Jasper owned a boutique fitness studio, a mere 3 blocks from Serena's corporate fortress. A cursory review of his social media revealed him to be thoroughly married, with 2 preteen children and a wife named Genevieve, whose online presence was a saccharine tableau of inspirational quotes and meticulously staged family portraits. "Eleanor, darling, this feels like it's spiraling into an unnecessarily complex web," B mused, as we settled into a discreet coffee nook directly opposite Jasper's gym. "On the contrary, my dear, it's about to become beautifully simplistic. Observe. Precisely at 2:45 p.m., Serena emerged from the gym, clad in designer activewear that likely cost more than my quarterly property taxes. Her hair, impossibly, remained coiffed with salon-fresh perfection, defying any notion of a strenuous workout. She consulted her phone, cast a quick, almost imperceptible glance around, then proceeded to a dark-tinted luxury SUV parked unobtrusively in a nearby service alley. Jasper appeared 5 minutes later, radiating an almost insolent nonchalance, and slid into the passenger seat. "They're not even attempting to be subtle," Bea muttered under her breath. I merely raised my phone, activating the video recorder once more. And why should they be, Bea? Who precisely is positioned to expose them? Serena has meticulously crafted a narrative painting me as a bitter, antiquated matriarch consumed by envy for her radiant happiness. And Julian? Julian would sooner believe in flying pigs than entertain a single negative whisper about his precious fiancée. The SUV glided out of the alley, making a deliberate turn towards a quiet residential enclave. I had, of course, mapped this precise route the previous day. Their destination was a rather unremarkable apartment complex on Clover Street, Unit 214, which Jasper apparently maintained as a private, unadvertised refuge, a fact his wife, I felt certain, remained blissfully unaware of. "We're not following them, Bea," I declared, my eyes fixed on the rearview mirror. "We're merely enjoying a particularly scenic drive. If, by sheer serendipity, we happen to observe something of profound interest, well, that's simply the capricious hand of fate, isn't it?" 20 minutes later, we sat parked in my vintage sedan, watching Serena and Jasper disappear into the apartment building. I noted the time, 3:17 p.m. My observations indicated this clandestine ritual had been occurring for weeks with the predictable regularity of a well-oiled machine, every Tuesday and Thursday, like clockwork. "Eleanor, what is your ultimate design for all of this?" Bea asked, her voice laced with concern. I met her gaze, remembering her steadfast presence, her hand gripping mine as Julian's father had walked out, her boisterous cheers from the sidelines of every school play and little league game when I had been the sole parent in attendance. Bea had been my anchor through every milestone, every profound crisis, every moment that genuinely mattered, and now my son was gone. Marrying someone who believed my very presence would mar his perfect day. Oh, I would deliver them a spectacle they'd never forget. That Friday evening, I sat in my home study, meticulously compiling digital files, each clip a brushstroke in the masterpiece of consequence I was creating. The software might be more advanced than the slide projectors of my lecturing days, but the principles of compelling narrative and damning evidence remained timeless. This wasn't just a video, it was my wedding tribute. At precisely 7 o'clock, the chime of the doorbell cut through the quiet hum of my laptop. Julian stood on my doorstep, a bottle of an expensive Barolo clutched in his hand, his usual self-assured poise replaced by an almost boyish discomfort. "Mom, can we talk?" he mumbled, avoiding my gaze as he stepped inside and gravitated towards the kitchen island, the confessional booth of his childhood. "I brought your favorite," he offered, placing the bottle down with a thud. Bribery wine. This indeed promised gravity. He had the decency to look sheepish. "I know yesterday was difficult. Serena truly feels dreadful about how everything transpired." "I'm sure she does," I replied, my voice devoid of inflection. "It's just that her family operates with very specific customs," he stammered, his eyes darting around the room. "Strict protocols regarding guest lists, wedding parties, and her grandmother, you know. She's quite traditional about these affairs." Each lie was an audible crack in his composure. I recalled Serena's grandmother vividly from our single encounter, a vivacious woman who had effused about how fortunate Serena was to be joining a family with such a charming and insightful matriarch. Clearly, that particular sentiment hadn't reached Serena's ears. "Julian, please, sit down." He perched awkwardly on a bar stool, looking every inch the guilty adolescent caught red-handed. "Mom, please don't sensationalize this," he pleaded. "It's their moment. Just one day." "You're absolutely right," I agreed, my voice remarkably gentle. "It is their day, and I intend for it to be utterly flawless for them." Relief, so potent it was almost palpable, washed over his features. "Really? You're not angry?" I reached across the gleaming granite, my fingers closing gently around his hand. It was the same hand I had guided through learning to write, held during scraped-knee emergencies, and gripped through the anxieties of university applications. "Sweetheart," I murmured, "all I've ever wanted is your happiness. That's always been my primary concern." "I love you, Mom." You know that, don't you? He said, his voice thick with what I now recognized as performative sincerity. I know, I replied, a subtle tightening of my grip the only outward sign of the complex currents beneath. After he departed, I returned to my laptop. The video compilation was almost complete. 3 meticulously assembled segments: the cafe rendezvous, the gym encounter, and yesterday's apartment visit. Each clip crisp, the audio crystal clear, every detail present for a truly compelling narrative. I had also spent the afternoon constructing several new digital profiles. Not for myself, of course. I was merely a heartbroken mother, gracefully accepting her exclusion. No, this was for Cassandra's Chronicles, a burgeoning online personality I'd fabricated with a backstory as a passionate investigative journalist specializing in ethical breaches in the wedding industry. Cassandra already boasted a rapidly growing audience, drawn to her unwavering commitment to exposing the truth. She posted scathing commentaries on marital infidelity and the sanctity of vows. Tomorrow, Cassandra would coincidentally be attending a lavish vineyard wedding as a guest, where she would, purely by chance, capture some profoundly illuminating footage. My phone buzzed with a message from Julian. "Thanks for understanding, Mom. You're the best. See you when we get back." I typed my reply, each word chosen with deliberate precision. "Have a truly memorable wedding, darling. You deserve absolutely everything that's coming to you." Truth in every syllable. Saturday morning dawned with an almost cynical perfection for a vineyard wedding. The sky was an unblemished azure, the air a balmy 78 degrees, a gentle breeze rustling through the leaves. I dressed with thoughtful intention in a classic navy linen dress and comfortable espadrilles. Retrieving my professional-grade camera, I drove towards Viridian Heights Vineyard. The parking lot was already bustling with arriving guests. I recognized a few faces from Julian's college days and a contingent of Serena's colleagues from Zenith Marketing. They all exuded an air of anticipatory joy, checking their phones and making final adjustments to their attire. I parked a few rows back, observing the elegant preparations. The ceremony was slated for the outdoor terrace, followed by a reception in the grand ballroom. I knew the meticulously planned itinerary intimately, having helped Julian with so many of the preliminary arrangements before my inconvenient presence had been deemed disruptive. At 2 o'clock, I strolled into the resort's magnificent lobby as if I owned a share in the establishment. No one questioned a tastefully dressed woman with a high-end camera slung over her shoulder. Wedding photographers were a ubiquitous sight at such venues. "Excuse me," I inquired of the concierge, my voice a model of polite efficiency. "Could you direct me to the Maxwell Thorne Wedding Preparation Suite? I believe the bridal party is assembling there?" The concierge confirmed. "The bridal party is in the Grand Vintners Conservatory, 3rd floor. Just follow the signs for the private suites." I took the elevator, the soft strains of a string quartet already drifting from the floor above. The hallway on the 3rd level buzzed with a controlled chaos. Bridesmaids in perfectly coordinated coral silk flowed between rooms, their arms laden with delicate floral arrangements and designer makeup cases. Across the opulent corridor from the terroir tasting room, where the groomsmen were gathered, I caught the distinct resonance of Julian's laughter, a sound I hadn't heard with such uninhibited joy since his early 20s. For a fleeting moment, a pang of maternal tenderness threatened to soften my resolve. This was, after all, my son's wedding day, the culmination of dreams I'd once helped him build. Then Serena's voice, sharp and dismissive, sliced through the quiet hum of activity from the Grand Vintners Conservatory. "Honestly, I'm absolutely relieved his mother isn't here. Can you even fathom the drama? She would have somehow hijacked the entire event to make it about her antiquated notions. And her wardrobe? It's like a museum exhibit from 1995. A ripple of sycophantic giggles followed from her bridesmaids. "At least you won't have to endure her presence very often after this," one cooed, "especially with the move to different coasts." Different coasts? I subtly leaned closer to the ornate door, adjusting the lens cap of my camera with a feigned meticulousness. I had suspected something of this magnitude, but now I had tangible confirmation. "Julian doesn't have a clue yet," Serena continued, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "I'll break the news after the honeymoon. The offer from Ascendant Global in San Francisco is too significant to ignore. It's the perfect, elegant exit from all his provincial attachments, his immature college friends, his utterly stifling family, and frankly, that pathetically clingy mother. Another voice, a slight tremor of concern, ventured, "But what if he resists the move?" Serena's laugh was a chilling, crystalline sound. "Darling, Julian will do precisely as he's told. He always has. The man is completely malleable." I had gleaned more than enough. My initial plan now felt almost rudimentary. I turned, a serene expression masking the storm within, and walked back to the elevator, descending to the ground floor. The wedding ceremony was slated to commence in just under 2 hours. The guest list, which I had, ironically, meticulously helped curate months ago, indicated that a certain Cassian Davies, a senior executive from Ascendant Global and Serena's new mentor colleague, would be attending as her childhood friend. This evening was promising to be exquisitely illuminating. At 3:45 p.m., I positioned myself discreetly on the elevated public promenade overlooking the estate's private beach, a vantage point offering an unobstructed view of the seaside altar. I was close enough to capture every nuance, yet distant enough to remain an anonymous observer. The wedding party gracefully assembled, illuminated by the golden hour, as guests settled into their pristine white chairs. Julian, resplendent in a tailored ivory linen suit, radiated an almost childlike exuberance. Serena, a vision in her bespoke designer gown, glided down the aisle, her smile a masterpiece of radiant deception. The officiant began the ceremony, his voice resonating with eloquent pronouncements on the sanctity of love, the strength of commitment, and the bedrock of honesty. My camera, an extension of my unwavering resolve, began to record. The ceremony itself possessed an undeniable beauty. I conceded that much. Julian's eyes, glistening with unbridled emotion as Serena approached him, were a testament to his profound adoration. The vows, traditional yet seemingly heartfelt, were exchanged. Even I felt a prickle of emotion watching my son pledge eternal devotion to a woman who, I knew with chilling certainty, would be the most virulently discussed figure on the internet within the next 48 hours. After the anticipated "you may kiss the bride" moment, the jubilant guests transitioned to the lavish reception. I followed, maintaining my calculated distance, meticulously documenting every facet: the effervescent cocktail hour, the gourmet dinner, the succession of speeches that lauded Serena's innate grace and Julian's extraordinary fortune in securing such a magnificent partner. Then came the crescendo of the evening, the dancing. Serena and Julian swayed in their first dance to Etta James's "At Last." So utterly romantic, so meticulously choreographed, so profoundly ironic given the burgeoning dossier of Serena's clandestine activities I possessed. At precisely 9:30 p.m., as a particularly languid, slow song drifted across the ballroom, I observed Cassian Davies approach Serena. Their whispered exchange was brief, and I caught Serena's eyes darting nervously across the room before she subtly gestured towards the secluded path leading to the ancient olive groves by the cliffside, then followed him. I slipped out a discreet side door of the reception tent, positioning myself behind a gnarled, centuries-old olive tree. The ambient sound of the ocean waves softened the audio here, but the visual was absolutely pristine. Serena and Cassian walked to a deeply shadowed alcove, sheltered by thick foliage, perhaps 70 yards from the main festivities. Even from this distance, their body language was starkly unequivocal. This was no casual conversation between work acquaintances. He drew her close. Their lips met. She responded with an almost desperate intensity for what stretched into 3 full minutes, while her freshly minted husband, entirely unaware, danced with his best man's wife, lost in the joyous oblivion of his wedding night. I filmed every agonizing second. When they finally broke apart, I distinctly heard Serena's hushed voice. 2 more hours, and we're free. She adjusted her gown. "I've told Julian I'm developing a migraine." Cassian's reply was equally low, charged with a knowing intimacy. "My private villa is already prepared. My wife thinks I'm on an overnight business trip to Silicon Valley. One last celebration, my dear, before you embark on your honeymoon and begin your new life with me." They separated, Serena making her way back first, Cassian following a careful 5 minutes later. I waited until they had both disappeared back into the illuminated tent before I moved, gliding towards my car in the parking lot to upload the complete, devastating chronicle to my laptop. 3 hours later, I was back in my study, a USB drive containing over 2 hours of meticulously documented betrayal now secured, ready for its grand debut. My digital opus was complete. Every frame of Serena's wedding day perfidy, seamlessly interwoven with the antecedent betrayals captured at the cafe, the gym, and the clandestine apartment. The supplementary audio clips, pristine and damning, provided irrefutable context. I brewed a soothing Earl Grey, its warmth a counterpoint to the calculated chill of my impending action, and returned to my laptop. Cassandra's Chronicles had spent the week artfully priming its audience, hinting at an imminent exposé that would redefine the boundaries of marital transparency. Her devoted legion, now exceeding 50,000, pulsed with anticipation, hungry for her next revelation. The digital clock glowed 2:17 a.m. In a mere 5 hours, Julian and Serena would be airborne, destined for their idyllic honeymoon in Cancun. By the time their jet touched down, the hashtag #WeddingDayTruth, a poignant commentary on the insufficiency of blind adoration, would be saturating every digital current. At 7 a.m. sharp, I scheduled the upload, then retired to bed, a serene sense of finality settling over me. 3 days after being unceremoniously cast out from my son's wedding, I was poised to bestow upon him the most unforgettable matrimonial present imaginable. Unvarnished reality. By 9 o'clock Sunday morning, the digital storm had broken. Wedding Day Truth, that stark declaration of love's limitations, had already amassed 2.3 million views and was accelerating its trajectory. My phone, a relentless harbinger of disruption, had thrummed incessantly since 7:30, yet I ignored its insistent demands, content to meticulously flip pancakes while observing the incandescent explosion of commentary online. The cinematic composition was, if I may indulge a moment of professional pride, a tour de force. It commenced with a tapestry of idyllic wedding moments, Julian and Serena, luminous in their ceremonial finery, exchanging earnest vows, gliding through their first dance. Then a stark visual dichotomy. One side of the frame lingered on Serena, gracefully swaying with her unsuspecting husband. The opposing panel, however, unspooled the raw, grainy footage from the cafe, revealing her clandestine encounter with Jasper just days prior. The auditory overlay was particularly lacerating. Serena's dismissive tones from the bridal suite. "Honestly, I'm absolutely relieved his mother isn't here. Can you even fathom the drama? She would have somehow hijacked the entire event to make it about her antiquated notions. And her wardrobe? It's like a museum exhibit from 1995. And were instantly superseded by her own saccharine wedding vows. I promise to honor you above all others." The denouement was pure, unadulterated genius. Serena and Jasper, locked in a fervent embrace by the cliffside olive groves as Etta James's "At Last" played its mournful, ironic melody. The screen then pivoted back to Julian, utterly oblivious, sharing buoyant laughter with his groomsmen inside the reception tent. Cassandra's Chronicles had appended a caption of chilling precision. "This groom, tragically, merits a far more authentic happiness. When genuine family bonds are arbitrarily severed, the truth, like a persistent current, will inevitably find its channel to the surface." The accompanying hashtags, matrimonial justice, modern betrayal, vows of deception, amplified its reach. My phone's insistence peaked with its 15th summons, Julian's familiar contact ID. I allowed it to default to voicemail again. At 9:47 a.m., a rapid rap at my front door. Peeking through the frosted pane, I saw B, a bag from my favored patisserie dangling from her hand, her face split by a grin as wide and knowing as a Cheshire cat's. "You magnificent, delightfully malevolent mastermind," she declared, sweeping past me into the kitchen. "Have you seen the morning bulletins?" "Bulletins?" I inquired, feigning mild disinterest. She switched on the television, navigating to the local news. There, stark against the anchor's grave expression, was a still from Serena's wedding, emblazoned with the banner, "Social media frenzy, viral wedding exposé, unmasks unfaithful bride." The anchor intoned, While the identity of the anonymous videographer remains shrouded in mystery, the explosive footage has ignited a national discourse on integrity within marriage and the often fraught dynamics of contemporary family unions. B chuckled, a rich, satisfied sound. They're dubbing you the Phantom Wedding Chronicler, Eleanor. And apparently, Channel 7 is desperately attempting to secure an interview with Cassandra's Chronicles, who, rather conveniently, appears to have vanished. My phone vibrated with an unfamiliar incoming text. The message was terse, ominous. We are aware of your involvement. Remove the content immediately or face severe repercussions. S. I presented the screen to B. It appears Serena's tropical idol isn't quite living up to expectations, I observed dryly. What's your strategy now, Eleanor? She asked, her eyes sparkling. Strategy? I mused, tilting my head. Why, I'm merely a heartbroken mother, unjustly sidelined from her son's momentous day. What possible connection could I have to viral digital sensations? The doorbell chimed once more. Standing on my porch was Genevieve, Jasper's wife. I recognized her instantly from the saccharine, spirational tableau of her Instagram account, but the woman before me bore no resemblance to her meticulously curated digital persona. Her eyes were bloodshot, her hands trembled uncontrollably. Mrs. Vance, I'm Genevieve Thorne, she announced, her voice a reedy whisper. I believe we need to converse. I welcomed her inside, offered a calming cup of Earl Grey, and allowed her the silence to compose herself. My husband, Jasper, he's in that video, she finally managed, her voice cracking. I'd had vague suspicions for months, a gut feeling I tried to rationalize away, but seeing it, so undeniably clear. She dissolved into wrenching sobs. Oh, my dear, I am truly sorry, I offered, my words imbued with genuine regret. I never intended for innocent lives to be caught in this maelstrom. Genevieve, still weeping, met my gaze. You did the right thing, she murmured, pulling herself together with immense effort. My children deserve so much more than a father who was a deceitful adulterer, and your son, Julian, deserves a partner who respects the sanctity of vows. How long had this charade been unfolding, in your estimation? At least 3 months that I know of, Genevieve whispered, her voice a ragged thread. The apartment on Clover Street, I discovered the rental agreement among his papers. It's been a relentless 6 months. 6 months of Serena planning this elaborate wedding, accepting lavish gifts, allowing countless guests to spend thousands on travel and accommodation, all while maintaining a meticulously concealed second life. What will be your path forward? I inquired, my voice soft. I've already filed for divorce, she stated, her posture stiffening slightly. My solicitor assures me the video footage is irrefutable evidence. Jasper will lose everything. She met my gaze directly, her eyes, though still red-rimmed, holding a flicker of steel. Thank you, Mrs. Vance. Thank you for unearthing the truth. It could not have been an easy decision, knowing the potential pain it would inflict on your son. After Genevieve departed, I remained seated in my living room, the quiet hum of the house punctuated only by the persistent vibrations of my phone. 17 missed calls from Julian, 12 from Serena, and half a dozen from numbers I didn't recognize. The video, my meticulously crafted tribute, had now surpassed 4.1 million views. My phone rang again. This time I answered, Mom. Julian's voice was a raw, guttural sound, stripped of all pretense. We need to talk. Julian arrived at my home Monday evening, appearing as if the past 2 days had aged him an entire decade. His Cancun tan only served to accentuate the profound exhaustion etched around his eyes and the crushing defeat that bowed his shoulders. The entire resort knew, Mom, he said, slumping heavily into my kitchen chair, the sound of wood scraping against tile echoing in the sudden silence. People were staring, whispering. Someone even recognized Serena from the video and, unbelievably, asked for her autograph. Her autograph, can you fathom it? I poured him a strong coffee, its rich aroma filling the space, and waited. Sometimes, the most profound maternal act is simply to bear witness. Serena's convinced you hired a private investigator, he continued, taking a shaky sip. She believes this was all a premeditated scheme, that you've been monitoring her for months. his bloodshot eyes fixed on me. "And what do you think, Julian?" He swallowed hard. "I think my mother wouldn't orchestrate something so merciless, simply because her feelings were wounded." The accusation, though wrapped in a partial defense, stung with an unexpected ferocity. I maintained a neutral expression. "Julian, do you believe the video is fabricated?" "No. God, no," he choked out, his voice cracking. "That's the most devastating part. It's all real, isn't it? Every agonizing second of it." I reached across the gleaming granite table and enclosed his hand in mine. "I am truly sorry you had to discover the truth in such a public, brutal manner, sweetheart." "Are you?" he asked, his voice sharp with a sudden bitter edge. "Are you genuinely sorry, Mom? Because a part of me, the part that's reeling from all of this, thinks you might be enjoying it." His words struck a chord, vibrating with a truth I had only privately acknowledged. Was I enjoying it? Watching Serena's perfectly polished facade crumble, seeing her lose complete control of the meticulously constructed narrative she had woven. Perhaps, I conceded internally, a small, vindicated part of me was. "I am profoundly sorry that you are hurting, Julian," I said carefully, my grip firm on his hand. "I am sorry that you pledged your life to someone who harbored such fundamental disrespect for you. But I am not sorry that the truth, however painful, finally emerged." "She claims it meant nothing," he rushed on, clinging desperately to any thread of logic. "Jasper was just helping her navigate pre-wedding jitters. The physical aspect was merely a means of stress relief. Mom, I know how it sounds, but people make mistakes. Marriage, isn't it fundamentally about forgiveness?" I gazed at my son, this grown man who still yearned to believe in the untarnished beauty of fairy tales. "Sweetheart," I murmured, "Serena has been conducting a clandestine affair for 6 months. She maintained a secret apartment on Clover Street, and she fully intended to inform you about her planned relocation to San Francisco, a move that would sever all your ties here, only after your honeymoon, without any prior discussion or consultation. This was not cold feet or stress relief. This was a calculated, prolonged deception. How do you know about San Francisco?" he whispered, his eyes widening in horror. I recounted the hushed conversation I had overheard in the bridal suite, each detail a precisely aimed arrow piercing his remaining illusions. His face crumpled, the truth sinking in with crushing weight. "She had it all meticulously planned out," he breathed, the words barely audible. "The move, cutting ties with everyone here. With you?" "Yes," I confirmed, my voice steady. "The job offer from Ascendant Global in San Francisco is very real. She accepted it 2 weeks ago. Her plan was to present it to you as a surprise opportunity, one we couldn't possibly pass up." We sat in a heavy, protracted silence. Outside, the streetlights began to flicker on, casting long shadows, and I could faintly discern the neighbor's dog barking at some unseen distraction in their yard. "Mom," Julian finally broke the quiet, his voice low, urgent. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be absolutely honest with me." "You have my word," I affirmed. Did you make that video?" I looked at my son, truly looked at him. The little boy who used to come running to me, scraped knees and bruised feelings alike. The teenager who trusted me implicitly to help him navigate his first clumsy heartbreak. The young man who had called me every single Sunday, without fail, until Serena decided those calls were excessive. "No," I said, my gaze unwavering. "I did not make that video." Technically, it was Cassandra's Chronicles who had uploaded the damning footage. A wave of profound relief washed over his features. "I knew it," he mumbled. "I told Serena you weren't capable of something so underhanded," Julian conceded, his voice heavy. "Mom, what am I supposed to do? She wants to fix things," he continued, running a hand through his already disheveled hair. "She says if we move to San Francisco, away from all of this, we can make a fresh start." "And what do you want, Julian?" I pressed gently. He was quiet for a long time, staring blankly at the polished granite countertop where, just days before, his wedding invitation had rested. "I want to trust my wife," he finally murmured, the words almost a plea. "But every time I look at her, I see the footage. Her laughing about you, kissing Jasper, meticulously charting a new life for me without a single conversation about my own desires. I keep hearing her voice in that conservatory, planning to cut me off from everything. "Then you have your answer, don't you?" I responded, my voice remarkably steady. "Do I?" he asked, his eyes suddenly burning with a raw anguish I hadn't seen since his boyhood heartbreaks. "Because I feel like I'm losing everything at once. My marriage, my faith, maybe even my connection with you. If you truly believe I orchestrated this, Julian, you're not losing me, sweetheart," I assured him, moving closer. "You never could." He pulled me into a tight embrace, holding on longer and more fiercely than he had in years. "I love you, Mom," he whispered into my shoulder. "Whatever happens next, I need you to know that." After his car disappeared down the driveway, I returned to my laptop. Cassandra's Chronicles now commanded 8.2 million views. The anonymous investigative journalist had acquired an additional 200,000 subscribers, and Serena Maxwell had been tagged in approximately 50,000 comments. None of them, I noted, offered solace. Sometimes the stark truth arrives with a brutal clarity, but it remains irrevocably the truth. Wednesday morning, 4 days after the calamitous wedding, brought an unexpected and profoundly altered visitor. Serena Maxwell stood on my doorstep, shrouded by oversized sunglasses and a baseball cap, a stark shadow of the confident bride who had so blithely rescinded my invitation. "We need to talk," she declared, pushing past me into the quiet sanctuary of my home. "Do come in," I stated, a subtle inflection in my voice as I watched her retreating form. She began to pace my living room, a predator trapped within an unfamiliar cage. "You've utterly demolished my life. My job wants me to take an indefinite leave of absence. My family refuses to speak to me. Jasper's wife is stripping him of everything in their divorce proceedings and has named me as the co-respondent. I am truly sorry you are experiencing such profound difficulties," I offered, my tone measured. She whirled around, her face contorted with fury. "Are you? Because I am convinced you meticulously planned every single second of this. I believe you hired someone to track Jasper and me. I believe you engineered this entire catastrophe because your feelings were wounded." I settled onto my velvet couch, gesturing for her to do the same. She remained standing, a tremor of desperate rage vibrating through her slender frame. "Serena," I began, my voice calm, "let me pose a hypothetical. If our positions were reversed, if Julian had been engaged in an affair and I possessed irrefutable proof, would you have wanted me to inform you?" "That's hardly the same thing," she scoffed. "On the contrary," I replied, my gaze steady. "You made choices, Serena. Those choices inevitably incurred consequences. The video did not fabricate your affair or your deceptions. It merely, and quite dispassionately, illuminated them." "You don't understand," she insisted, her voice tight. "Jasper and I, it's complicated. Julian is kind, yes, but he's not challenging. He doesn't inspire me to aspire to more. Jasper does." "Then, my dear," I observed, "it seems you married the wrong man. A good man, one would assume, should suffice." I studied Serena's face, a new expression surfacing beneath the layers of anger and desperation, genuine bewilderment. She had, with astonishing conviction, believed she could sustain both realities, the comforting security of marriage to Julian and the intoxicating thrill of an affair with Jasper. "Serena, did you love Julian when you married him?" I inquired softly. "Of course I did," she retorted, a flicker of defiance in her eyes. "I do." "Then why," I asked, "did you exclude his mother from your wedding?" She sank onto the opposite couch then, her carefully constructed composure finally fracturing. "Because you see too much," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "You ask too many questions. You make me feel insufficient for him." "Are you?" The question hung in the silence between us, the air suddenly thick with unspoken truths. Serena's meticulously crafted facade was visibly crumbling. "I don't know," she confessed, her voice thick with nascent tears. "I thought I was, but being with Jasper made me feel alive in a way Julian never did, and I truly believed I could have both, that nobody would be hurt if I was simply careful enough." "Somebody always gets hurt, Serena," I stated, my voice softening. "The only variables are who and when." "I never meant for it to go this far," she sobbed, finally breaking. The affair was supposed to conclude after the wedding. Jasper was meant to be my final vestige of freedom before embracing married life. But it didn't end. No, it intensified. And then the job offer in San Francisco materialized, and it felt like a cosmic sign, a chance to start over, perhaps even to eventually build a life with Jasper. I felt an unexpected tremor of something akin to pity for this young woman, adrift in the wreckage of her own destructive choices. "Serena," I urged, "you need to be entirely honest with Julian about everything." "He'll leave me," she cried, her eyes wide with terror. "He might," I conceded. "But if you persist in lying, you will undoubtedly lose him. And you will lose yourself, too." She stood rigidly by my study window, her gaze fixed on the quiet street outside. "The video, can you have it removed?" "I cannot," I replied, my voice steady. "And even if I could, digital remnants persist. It is, irrevocably, out there now." "So, I'm ruined," she whispered, a new note of despair in her tone. "My career, my marriage, my reputation, all irrevocably shattered because of a few missteps." "Serena," I stated, leaning back into my armchair, "you are 28 years old. You are not ruined unless you actively choose to be. However, you must cease assigning blame elsewhere and begin accepting responsibility for your own actions." She offered no further protest, simply turning and exiting my home. Through the window, I watched her sit in her luxury sedan for a full 10 minutes, an unmoving silhouette, before finally driving away. That evening, Julian called. His voice, usually so carefully modulated, was raw, stripped bare. "Serena told me everything, Mom," he began, a tremor running through his words. "About San Francisco, about Jasper, about the apartment. How are you doing?" "I am quite well, sweetheart," I replied, a profound sense of calm washing over me. "And you?" "I'm filing for annulment," he confessed, the words heavy with a new kind of resolve. "My solicitor assures me that when one's spouse has been meticulously orchestrating a relocation to sever all ties and maintaining a secret life, it constitutes grounds for marital fraud." A wave of quiet relief, potent and deeply satisfying, enveloped me. "I am proud of you, Julian," I said, allowing the genuine sentiment to infuse my voice. "Mom, I need to apologize for so much," he continued, his voice cracking. "For allowing Serena to diminish you, for excluding you from the wedding, for doubting you when the video first emerged." "You don't need to apologize for loving someone, Julian," I responded gently, "but I do appreciate you acknowledging the truth about how you were manipulated." "I do need to apologize for choosing her over you," he insisted. "You've never been anything but a pillar of unwavering support, and I let her convince me that somehow you were the problem. Julian, what truly matters is that your vision is clear now." "It is," he affirmed, a new strength in his tone. "And I've come to realize I have a formidable, brilliant mother who, despite my lapses, never ceased teaching me that every action carries an indelible consequence." "What will you do now?" I inquired. "I'm moving back home for a while, if that's acceptable," he said, a note of vulnerability in his voice. "I need to rediscover who Julian Thorne is, unburdened by external expectations." "Your room, my dear," I confirmed, "remains precisely as you left it, awaiting your return." A few weeks had elapsed since the digital storm broke when, amidst the vibrant chaos of the gourmet market's produce section, a young woman approached me. "Excuse me, Mrs. Vance?" My internal equilibrium hitched. Had the relentless tide of public inquiry finally traced its way back to me? "Yes, I am," I replied, my voice a carefully modulated echo of polite inquiry. "I'm Ms. Albright from Channel 7 News," she stated, her tone brisk and professional. "I've been meticulously investigating the wedding day truth story, and I would be immensely grateful for a few moments of your time." This was it, the moment I had anticipated, the final act in this improbable drama. "I'm not entirely certain how I can assist you," I demurred, adopting an air of mild bewilderment. "Well, you are Julian Thorne's mother, correct? The groom featured so prominently in the video." "Indeed. And you were, conspicuously, not extended an invitation to your son's wedding?" "That is accurate," I confirmed, a flicker of something unreadable in my eyes. Ms. Albright, sensing her advantage, deftly activated her phone's video function, the small red light illuminating. Mrs. Vance, how did that exclusion make you feel? I regarded this young reporter, perhaps Serena's age, her ambition palpable in the tension of her posture. It made me feel a profound sadness, I articulated, choosing my words with care. Every mother harbors the hope of being a cherished participant on her son's wedding day. Did you have any prior knowledge of your daughter-in-law's extracurricular relationships? She pressed, her gaze unwavering. I had no specific knowledge of Serena Maxwell's personal relationships beyond what I, as Julian's mother, might have observed through the ordinary course of social interaction. With some individuals online are speculating that you might have been directly involved in the creation or distribution of the viral wedding video. Do you have any comment on these allegations? This was the true crucible. I could, undoubtedly, weave a plausible tapestry of denial, deflect the questions, and likely emerge unscathed. Or I could embrace the consequence, own the narrative I had so painstakingly constructed. Ms. Albright, I began, my voice settling into the measured cadence of a seasoned lecturer. Allow me to impart a small truth about the complexities of motherhood. When one's child is in jeopardy, a mother's primary instinct is to protect them. Sometimes, that necessitates a period of judicious observation, allowing them to learn from their own missteps. At other times, it demands a more direct intervention. The reporter's eyes widened perceptibly. She had clearly anticipated evasion, not philosophical rumination. Are you implying, Mrs. Vance, that you personally created the video? I am implying that sometimes, I clarified, my gaze steady. The truth, however inconvenient, requires a certain impetus to find its way to the surface. Ms. Albright leaned closer, her voice dropping to an excited whisper. Mrs. Vance, are you on camera admitting that you created the viral wedding exposé? My mind drifted to Julian, back in the quiet sanctuary of his childhood room, meticulously rebuilding his confidence and sense of self. I thought of Genevieve Thorne, finally liberated from a deceitful spouse, and I recalled the countless comments on Cassandra's chronicles, thanking the anonymous source for unmasking a profound deception. I am admitting, Miss Albright, I stated, my voice ringing with quiet conviction, that I love my son enough to ensure he was privy to the unvarnished truth about the individual with whom he intended to forge a life. Even if it meant risking your relationship with him, she challenged, and publicly humiliating your daughter-in-law? Serena Maxwell authored her own public narrative, Ms. Albright, I countered, a ghost of a smile touching my lips. I merely served as its meticulous chronicler. The broadcast aired that evening. By the following morning, my phone, once again, became a relentless purveyor of inbound communications. Calls from syndicated talk shows, burgeoning podcasts, and tenacious documentary filmmakers inundated my phone. The chronicler of consequence was trending on every social platform. Opinion pieces dissecting maternal foresight, marital ethics, and the steep price of transparency proliferated. Some lauded me as a champion, others excoriated me as vindictive and cold. I was simultaneously celebrated and condemned, often by the same voices. Yet Julian's defense of me was absolute. She rescued me from the most catastrophic error of my life, he informed the press, who had converged upon our home. My mother perceived what my love-blinded eyes could not. Serena, in her own sphere, had settled into California, embracing the career opportunity she had meticulously orchestrated all along. Jasper was now residing in a modest studio apartment, employed at a different fitness studio, having relinquished almost everything in the wake of his wife's divorce proceedings. The video, my meticulously crafted digital opus, now commanded over 50 million views. Cassandra's chronicles had achieved legendary status, though the discerning public largely understood its true authorship, and I felt something I had not anticipated, a profound tranquility. After 2 years, I was no longer navigating social interactions around my son's fiancée with cautious apprehension. I was no longer feigning admiration for someone who treated me with disdain. I was no longer complicit in a relationship built upon intricate deceptions and subtle manipulations. The truth, however brutal its arrival, had liberated us all, even if that freedom was forged in the crucible of upheaval. 6 months later, Julian's recovery was remarkable. I hadn't witnessed such vitality in him for years. He had embraced therapy, meticulously reconnected with old friends Serena had systematically alienated, and was cultivating a promising connection with a thoughtful woman named Clara, who, refreshingly, seemed genuinely to relish my company. The viral video had evolved into a compelling case study in digital ethics seminars and a potent cautionary tale regarding social media's formidable reach. I had been interviewed by numerous news programs, podcasts, and even a documentary crew. The narrative had been optioned for a major streaming platform adaptation, though I harbored doubts they would ever fully capture the complex, nuanced emotions underpinning what, on the surface, appeared to be simple retribution. But the real vindication, the profound, resonant kind, arrived when Serena called me on a quiet Tuesday evening in October. "Mrs. Vance, it's Serena Maxwell." "Hello, Serena. How are you?" I inquired, my voice even. "I'm different. Better, I think. I'm calling to extend my gratitude." That word, gratitude, was not one I had anticipated hearing. Thank me? The video dismantled my life, yet it also saved it. Does that resonate with you? "Tell me," I encouraged. "I've been engaged in authentic therapeutic engagement since moving to California, not merely the performative counseling sessions Julian and I endured, and I've realized I was living someone else's blueprint for my life. The idealized wedding, the accomplished spouse, the picture-perfect suburban tableau, none of it aligned with my intrinsic desires." I settled into my chair, phone pressed to my ear. "What do you desire now?" "I aspire to embody veracity, even when it's arduous, especially when it's arduous. I want to be someone who doesn't need to operate clandestinely, or to deceive, or to manipulate others to feel genuinely alive." "And are you becoming that person?" "I'm making earnest attempts. I've permanently severed ties with Jasper. I've been entirely forthcoming with my parents about the affair and the annulment. I'm cultivating a new relationship, and he is aware of every facet of my past, a life unburdened by clandestine narratives." "I'm pleased you're finding your path. Mrs. Vance, I need to convey my profound apologies, not solely for the affair, but for the manner in which I treated you. You were never the impediment. I was simply disarmed by the piercing clarity of your perception. Serena, we all navigate through missteps. What truly matters is the wisdom gleaned from them. I've learned that authenticity, not artifice, forms the bedrock of a fulfilling existence, no matter how outwardly appealing those deceptions may appear. And I've learned that mothers who pose challenging inquiries often harbor profound wisdom." After we concluded our conversation, I sat in my kitchen contemplating the unforeseen odyssey that had brought us all to this juncture. An excluded mother, a viral exposé, a shattered marriage, lives irrevocably reshaped. Had I acted with ethical rectitude? The query, a persistent companion for months, finally found its answer. Julian was flourishing, displaying a confidence and contentment I hadn't witnessed in years. Serena was embarking on a journey towards authentic living. Genevieve Thorne had remarried and radiated genuine happiness in her social media updates. Even Jasper, according to mutual acquaintances, was engaged in self-improvement and diligently working to rebuild his relationship with his children. Occasionally, truth's advent incinerates all in its path, but sometimes that very conflagration is precisely what is needed. The digital ripples from the Viridian Heights affair continued to undulate across the internet, sparking endless academic discussions on the ethics of public exposure, the sanctity of familial bonds, and the precise cost of consequence. Eleanor, however, had long since ceased perusing the labyrinthine comment sections. Her conviction was her compass. She understood her actions, her motivations. It was a primal maternal defense, executed with precision, honed by decades of scholarly rigor. What else was a mother to do when her child's happiness hung in the balance? Her phone chimed then, a message from Julian. "Dinner this Sunday? Clara's keen to learn the secrets of your renowned bouillabaisse." She smiled, composing her reply. "Absolutely. I'll share every culinary nuance. Some legacies are meant to be passed down, some deceptions, painstakingly brought to light. The wisdom I've learned lies in distinguishing between the two. And when one navigates these treacherous waters with both fortitude and discernment, sometimes, just sometimes, the undeniable current of truth eventually liberates us all. Then, with a quiet sigh, she addressed her unseen audience. Thank you for bearing witness to this unexpected chapter. If this narrative has resonated, do consider subscribing, and I warmly invite you to share your own stories of truth's unveiling below. Every voice contributes to the larger historical record.